we haven't had a chance publicly to continue those conversations about the two scenarios. So I would open it up to the Board of Education to ask any clarifying questions about the information that was presented tonight.
I have a comment, a statement. Closing schools is the board's biggest and weightiest responsibility. It's even heavier and more burdensome than placing a referendum on the ballot, since in that scenario, the public has the opportunity to debate and discuss the proposal for months and ultimately vote. In the case of a school closing, 7 board members decide which schools to close and when on behalf of the community of 40,000. As such, we carry a heavy burden to be certain we have done the most thorough due diligence possible. In this instance, with parents, children, and staff affected so deeply, the bell can't easily, if ever, be unrung. While we must rely on our cabinet to supply us the information to inform our decision on school closing, such as staffing, building capacity, financials, and educational impacts, the ultimate decision rests solely on the board's shoulders. I believe, to borrow my fellow board members' language, the board is the guardians of the community's souls when it comes to closing schools. Every community member must know at this point that some schools must be closed. If anyone still doesn't believe this, I believe they should not vote yes or no for the referendum because they are woefully uneducated about our district's challenges. The board and community have been discussing for at least 18 months now the possibility of Lincoln, Edgewood, and Green Bay closing in the event of a successful referendum. In fact, under any scenario, these schools have been slated for closing. At this time, I'm firmly against closing any school, Ravinia or other, which has not been slated prior to 30 days ago for closing. I urge the board to slow down, take a deep breath, and regroup. Let's agree on the 3 schools that have been in the mix all along and agree to dig deeper on what else we can do to save the district money. We can add another school by November if necessary, after doing more due diligence. At a minimum, waiting and taking a purposeful pause for a few months while we do some more research will not cost us anything. There are board members who claim that the public wants to know exactly what will happen if the referendum doesn't pass. I'd argue that the public will accept that we have named 3 of the schools which will close and that there may be additional closings after further study is done. The public will not fault us for failing to be hasty. This type of uncertainty is one of the price tags that comes from a failed referendum. Further, I'd argue that the community members who want to know exactly what will happen in the face of a failed referendum are far outweighed by the community members who want us to move more cautiously. I implore my fellow board members to slow down. Either take a few months to study the issue more deeply, or alternatively, let's adopt a 2-tier approach to school closings. Let's agree to close the 3 schools in 2017-18 that have been on the table and to discuss other possible school closings, as well as other ways to save operating costs over the next few months. We can either vote to add another school at that time or adopt a 2-tier approach, closing more schools as needed in 2018 or later as determined. I understand some board members will object and say that we must change boundaries only one time and therefore must close all elementary schools at once. My response to this, again, is that a no vote in March brings uncertainty. If boundaries need to be redrawn in 2 years because more schools need to be closed because our community has not passed a referendum of any sort, then the board will have to proceed in proper sequence. Closing more schools today, just so we don't have to possibly reboundary in 2 or more years, does not provide enough support for acting hastily. Also, the presentation tonight concedes there may be boundary shifts in the next year or 2 if enrollment changes. Finally, to those board members who will argue that the 4th school closing will make or break whether or not we will have to make program cuts because we have given up savings from closing a 4th school, I say wait, slow down. That's a data point. As of now, looking at the latest projections, closing Ravinia minimally impacts our bottom line financially versus the huge emotional cost. We make it to 2027 before hitting the 25% mark versus before 2028 with Ravinia close. This assumes no new money in our schools. It's a bad buy. I urge the board to dig deeper and more prudently. Do not vote to close schools by a 4-3 vote. That in and of itself indicates more work needs to be done. Finally, I will take this opportunity to urge voters to get informed. There will always be a yes and a no camp, regardless of the particular referendum on the ballot. Every referendum will be controversial, it's emotional, and it's financial. Thank you.